Hello, my name is Susie. I'm going to walk us through a Sporkle quiz today. This is a logic quiz that we have to put all the numbers 1 to 25 in this grid. So there's every number uniquely once. And if you want to play at home, I'm going to put this link in the description so you can play along. If you do, just note that you have to put in single digit numbers as if they're 2 digits, so 04 for 4 or 01 for a 1. When it says the word adjacent, it means it includes diagonals, so adjacent to A2 is A1, B1, B2, B3 and A3, so all of them around diagonals as well. And it says this logic puzzle can be solved without guessing. So that's what we're going to try to do today, kind of work through the things. And this is a quiz by someone called Audio Smile, so you can find them. They've got other quizzes that you can do as well. So what's going to help us today as well is having this grid. It's just the same on an Excel document, so we can kind of walk through each stage of what to do. So let's get started. It's given us two things to start off with, so we'll pop them in first of all. We've got a 12 there, and down at the bottom we've got a 7. And it says the lead diagonal numbers increase from top left to bottom right. So top left is here, bottom right here, so they increase. So if that's a 1, that could be a 2, for instance, 3, 4, 5. They get bigger as they go from this diagonal. So diagonal increases for just this diagonal, not this one. Okay, and then we've got square numbers. Locations form an X in the center. So the squares are going to be like this. Going to form a kind of X shape in the middle. So if we know that all the squares go in there, let's start off by putting the options that it could be. So 1, 4, 9, 16 and 25 are all our squares in this quiz. So they're going to go in that spot, also in there, 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 and there. Just going to highlight these ones that are done to show that they're done. Let's go for green today. So we're going to have green ones there. They're done. And then we can highlight these ones to kind of show that they've got everything in that can go in them. And we'll just do that in a lighter colour so they don't match. And the same over here. We want to highlight these to say we can't put them elsewhere other than in those spots. But we know that this diagonal increases. So in other words, if we had something here and then a 1, that wouldn't work because there's nothing lower than a 1, of course. So we can't have a 1 in there in any of these spots in the centre. In that lead diagonal, I mean. But now if we had a 4, that would work because we could have a 1, 2 or a 3 lower. Not a 1 actually because it's taken by one of these two squares, but a 2 or a 3 would work. And the same logic for the 25. You can't have anything. If you had a 25 in here, there'd be nothing bigger to go in these spots. So no 25 in any of them, which leaves us with 3 options. Now there's 3 options in 3 squares. They have to be in those spots, which leaves 1 and 25 only to go in these 2 spots. So that's narrowed down quite a lot of options. And then because it's only 3 options and we know they go in order, we can just put them in. So we've got a 4 first, then a 9, then a 16. Now this spot can only be, like I said, a 2 or a 3. Can't be a 1 because the 1's in one of these 2 spots. But there's no other options that are lower than a 4 for that to go in. So we can kind of put that in because it's not very many options. But the 16 here, there's quite a lot of options bigger than a 16. 17 all the way to 24 works. 25's taken, but all the rest works. We're not going to bother putting in that yet. But we'll keep this down here to remind us that it increases. and we can highlight these ones to show that they're done, so we don't accidentally try to use them again. What have I used before? This colour. And I'm just going to highlight that one in that light colour to show that that is kind of the only option. Only option in this spot is a 2 or a 3. So that's that. We can put in some things that we got. So we got a 4 in there. We've got a clue there. We'll read that in a sec. A 9 there, and a 16 there. So we've got 3 clues. Multiples of 5 are not on the outer edge of the puzzle. So multiples of 5 have to go in these slots in the middle. And as you can tell, lots of them are taken already. So I'll just write that here for a bit of reference. Actually, let's just sort that right now. So the 25 is obviously a multiple of 5. It's going to be in one of those 2 spots. That works. But then there's only 4 spots left. And there's 4 more multiples of 5. Multiples of 5 are down here. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. There's only 4 more slots with the 4 left to go in there. So we know already that that's going to be 5, 10, 15 or 20 in that spot there. Let me just make that a bit smaller so we can see what's going on in there. That's true also for this spot and this spot and this spot. And then all of these 5s are kind of used in the sense that they've got to be in these spots. So we can kind of keep them like that. Then this says corners are all prime numbers. So 2 and 3 are both prime already, 7's a prime. But we can put a little P in these spots to show that they've got to be a prime. And then the last thing we were told is that row 3 numbers, so this row, increase from left to right. So we know that this 9 in the middle, this one's got to be less than 9, which the only option in there is 5. And then this has got to be more than 9, so it could be 10, 15 or 20 at this point. We can get rid of 5 and everywhere else because it's now gone. So get rid of 5 there. 5's now done, so we can change that to a darker green. Getting mixed up with my greens, I think, here. 5s. And we can put 5 in on our grid here. I don't think it will give us a clue because there's still stuff to work with. No, so that's it. We've got 6 so far of the 25. So 5's done. Let's do that. Colour. And let's think. So this one, let's just write in that this increases. Now this prime, it's got to be bigger than 16 because remember it's going increasing as it comes down. So it's got to be a prime bigger than 16. The primes in mine are underlined here. So we've got 17, 19 or 23. So might as well write them in to show that that's kind of everything that can go there. And when we can narrow down some options later, that would be helpful to have that there. So, what have we got? So, we know that this row increases. So we want to look for numbers lower than 5 that could go in this spot. The only 2 numbers that are left are 2 and 3, which is great because 2 and 3 in both these spots means that the 2 and 3 can't go anywhere else, which is good to know. Then this prime could be any of the ones left that are underlined, 11, 13, 19, 17 and 23. It's quite a lot of options in there. And this increases, so that could be a 10 for instance, and then this could be anything bigger than 10, which is again quite a lot of options. So not much information there. What are we missing? Okay, I was just staring at this for a minute. I couldn't work out what I'd missed. But if we go back to here, it says row 3 numbers are all odd and increase from left to right. I missed that they were all odd. So row 3 has odd numbers. That one must be a 3. It's got to be less than 5. The only option there is a 3, so that makes a 3 and a 2 be in those spots. And then it's got to be odd, so that's got to be a 15. So we can take 15 out of there and out of there as well. And then this number has to be bigger than 15 and odd. So if it's bigger than 15 and odd, there's not that many options. We could probably write them in. We've got 17, 19, 21, and 23. Not too many options there that could be. And again, I'll just highlight that to show that that's everything that can be. We can get rid of this increases now. We kind of implied for both of those. But we got the 2 and the 3 there, so and the 15. So we can put all of them in. So we got 2 at the top. Column E numbers are all prime. So put that down here, all prime. And they increase from top to bottom. Increase from top to bottom. And then here we've got 3, which doesn't give us a clue. And then next to the 9 there we've got 15, which doesn't give us a clue. That's fine, we've still got stuff to work with. So going back to these numbers, this is already prime, we knew that, but we can take this 21 out because that's not a prime number left in there. And we can have a prime there, a prime there. And the increase get bigger from the top to the bottom. So looking at these numbers, we've got here so this 23, for instance, can't be here, as if it was. There'd be nothing bigger to put down here in the spot. And if this was a 17, that wouldn't work because there'd be nothing smaller to put in this spot. But we could, well, we can't actually have this 19 and 17. So if this one was a 17, that'd leave this one to be a 19, which you think, yeah, that's alright because there's an 18 in the middle, but 18 is not prime. So that wouldn't work. So that leaves only 19 to go in there and 23 to go in there. And then we've got to find a prime number between 19. Ah, no, that doesn't work either. Take that back. Right, yes. So the only option actually is, so the reason that didn't work, let's just go through that, is 1923, but there's no primes left in the middle between them. So that can't work. So instead, it's got to be 17 in there. The next prime is then 19, which goes in there. 23 at the bottom. So they're all kind of set now. 17, 19, 23. And just before we put that in, if we look at these 2 primes that are left, what primes are there left? We can list them. So we've got 11 that could go in there. And then the only other prime that we've got left is 13. And since they go in order, we might as well, we have to put them in those spots. So an 11 and a 13 in there like that. We've used all of that clue and we got quite a lot from that. So we can put in all of those things. So let's start with this one. We've got an 11 and this one's a 13. Multiples of 7 are all adjacent to each other. So multiples of 7 are all adjacent. We'll come back to that in a moment. Let's do this is a 17. Multiples of 6 in the first 2 rows. come back to that as well. We've got a 19 here. Okay, it's got a little equation, so I'm just going to write that in here. C1 plus C2 is equal to C4 plus C5. What else we got? A 23. And I think that's everything put in. So look at the sevens first. We've got 7, 14, 21. They've all got to be adjacent. Now, we've used a 7, that's down here. We haven't used either of the other numbers, so since that's got to be a 1 or a 25, one of these two could be a 14. And the other one could be a 21, but if they've all got to be adjacent, it does have to be like that. We couldn't have, for instance, the 14 in here and the 21 in there, because then the 7 and the 21 are not adjacent to each other. So the only way that works is having them in a little kind of corner together. So 14 and 21 then are kind of taken in that spot. So let's pop that like that. Multiples of 6 are in the first two rows, so we've got 6, 12, 18, 24. Now, let's see, we've not got a 6 yet. There's only 3 spots left here. 12 is already there. 18's not appeared, so that's got to be in one of these 3 as well. And 24 hasn't appeared, so again there's 3 spots for 3 numbers, which means all of them then appear in that, so we can write them in. 6, not 12, because we've done 12 already. 18, 24 in these 3 spots. There. So that's done. That's all done. And then we're looking at this C1, C2 situation. So these 2 numbers added together is the same as these 2 numbers added together. So just before we think about that, we can think about what's left. So we've just used the 6, the 18, the 24. So we could put them coloured. So the only 2 that are left is 8 or 22. So everything has kind of a spot now. So looking at this C1, C2 options. So the options are, for C1, we've got 6, an 18 or a 24. They're the only 3 options. And then for the C2, we've got to have either a 10 or a 20. So this doesn't give that many options if we're looking at all of them. But then if you look at these, but the same kind of situation for the C4 and C5. So C4 is either 10 or 20, which is obviously the opposite of the C2. And then C5 is only left with 8 or 22. So without actually doing kind of any maths, we've got this C2 and C4 is going to be 10 more or 10 less. So we need to compare the C1 to C5 and see what's 10 more or 10 less. So this 6, 10 more would be 16. That's not an option. And then this 18, if you had 10 less than 18, you could get 8, so that could work. And the 24, 10 less would be 14, which isn't an option. So that means that this C1, the only option for it is this 18. So if we pop 18 in there, and we've got C5, which is then an 8, they're 10 apart. And when you add C1 and C2, you get the same thing. So because C1 is 10 bigger, we need 10 smaller for this, which makes 28 as a total there. And then if you add the other 2, which is 20 and 8, you get that 28 again. So we've used then 18, 8, 20 and 10 for that, which uses everything there. But before we move on, we've got this spot has only got an 8 or a 22, since it can't be an 8 because that's done. That's got to be 22. And then we can take these 18s out because it obviously can't be 18 anymore because 18's done. So it leaves 6 and 24 only. But 22 is also done, so we're pretty close now. So let's have a little look. We've got, where can we put in this 10? Doesn't give us a clue, but that's fine. Then we've got this 20. Oh, we've got the 18 at the top there. And down here we've got that 8. And then we've got a 22 here as well. And that says the sum of each column increases from left to right. Sum of the columns increase from left to right. Okay. So let's work with this column first because it's nice and easy because we've got all of the numbers in there. So if we make the sum of these values gives us 83. And then, for instance, the sum of this one, oh my word, okay, is 65. So we know that this column has to be somewhere between 65 and 83. So I don't know if this will work on Excel to use, well, let's just do those ones so far. So we've got 53 so far, and we need to make it between these two, but we've got two values missing here. And then, so at the moment in D, so this is for column D, we've got 53 is our total so far. And then we could add a 1 or a 25 in the D2 spot, or we could add a 6 and a 24. There's only a few options here, so we could have a 1 and a 6, or we could have a 1 and a 24, or we could have a 25 and a 6, or a 25 and a 24, which I've got the feeling is going to be too big. So let's just move these down here and we'll do some quick sums of these. So this is the sums that we get from it. Now we know it's got to be between 65 and 83. That one's too low, and then these two are too big. So that only leaves this one option, which is the 1 and the 24. So we've got to have a 1 in there, and we've got to have a 24 there, which tells us that this one's 25 because that's all that's left there, and the 24's gone, so that's got to be a 6 up there. So if we then change this total, we'll just make sure that works. Gives us a 78, which is what we got over here as well. Now, again, the two options we've got for the sum over here, if we're looking at column A, first of all, the sum so far is these all added, which gives us 24. And then we either got 14 or 21 to add to that. And we'll get the sum so far of this column is so far 40. So column A, we've got 24, and then for the options, we've got 14 or 21. And we need that to be smaller, so we can again add this up. Not like that. Let's try that again. We want the sum of that right? Yep. And then that one. Okay, 38 or 45. And we could do the same for column B. So we've got so far a total of 40. And we've got to make sure it doesn't go past 65. But we've got the options 14 or 21. Can't go past 65 because that's that column. This might not tell us anything. It might be that we need another clue, but we can work out if it tells us anything or not. So that'd give us 54. But if instead we added 21, we'd get 61. Both of which seem to work. But of course, if this was using the 14, if column A used the 14, that would be 38, which would compare to the 61. That could work. The other way around, that would be using the 21 and the 14. They do both work. So it doesn't tell us the answer, but we must get another clue to get that. So we've got a 6 in there, 24 there, a 1. We don't know that A4 yet, but we do know 25 next to it, and that's our clue. There are 3 consecutive numbers in my row, so we've got to have 3 numbers in this row that are consecutive, so 19, 20 and 21. If we had a 14, that wouldn't give us enough. We'd have 19 and 20 but nothing else. So that means this last one's 21, and that makes this last one a 14. So in here we've got 21 and 14. Congratulations. So that took us 27 minutes in total, which is not too bad. And that was a logic puzzle by Audio Smile. Let me know if you want any others, and I'll try to do them for you.